Potentia Wealth brings you the Power of Wealthness podcast.
Rachel received an email from Apple offering a free iPhone for product testing. The phone arrives, complete with a friendly caller to help her set it up, because she's a bit uncomfortable with technology. What she didn't know was that the free phone was cloned. Every password she typed, for the bank, investments, credit cards, the scammers were watching everything in real time. Cybersecurity doesn't always send an email. Sometimes it delivers a package. This is the Power of Wealthness podcast. My name is Kevin Swanson, and my partner, Todd, Barney, and I are discussing cybersecurity with our guest, Divyash Patel, who is the president of MX2 Technology. Welcome, Divyash.
Thank you, Kevin.
Technology is a hot topic right now, but you've been in this for a number of years. Where did you get started and why cybersecurity?
Well, definitely it's been an interesting journey to see how threats have evolved over time. And over the years, we've seen many businesses fail because of lack of cybersecurity. And what that prompted me to do is help these small businesses out. And we've seen a lot of these vulnerabilities, breaches and that sort of thing happen over the course of years where it's wiped out organizations financially. I've seen this on personal levels as well, where people have been, taken advantage of through phishing scams or through exactly what you just opened up with, these false claims of getting things and in return, getting duped for something even bigger. So the reason why cybersecurity is important nowadays is because of the amount of hacking that's happening. And people are completely losing their life savings, businesses are going under. And then that also ends up being a regulated environment. Now even businesses are being regulated. So I'm sure from the financial standpoint, either you've got FINRA, you've got SOX that's a number of years old, but even in the Department of Defense, which is something we just recently did, organizations are now being held to a higher level of standard from cybersecurity standpoint.
So, Divyash, there's a lot of buzzwords out there, and it gets confusing. So we have hacking, we've got phishing, vishing. Can you run us through a couple of those and describe what they are, and so that our listeners can be more aware?
Sure, yes. Great questions. Phishing is basically done through a number of ways, and that could be through vishing, which is, through video, or through smishing, which is through SMS text. Most popular one is through email. Everybody's going to have some form of phishing through email, and that's the biggest level of threat. So in any organization, what we've seen, the lowest hanging fruit, the biggest threat vector is going to be the end user. The reason being is they don't know how to identify these phishing messages, and they end up clicking on links when they don't know how to identify whether it's a legit link or not. So there's a number of ways to be breached, and that's one of the methods that hackers use.
I get a lot of emails, PG&E bills, UPS, that's reaching out and saying that I need to validate some information, packages being sent. How do I know what's real and what's not these days?
Yeah, no, excellent question. So I get a lot of FedEx and UPS, USPS text messages. And the biggest giveaway is the number they're sending these things from. So in my case, I would get a text message that says, you have an urgent delivery from IRS, and we've got it at the FedEx Holdings site. Click on this link to save it. If you look at the phone number from where they're sending it from, it's an international number. And by the way, FedEx, UPS, these guys won't text you unless you set it up on their site to be notified. So number of years ago, we were getting users complaining about, hey, I'm getting IRS emails. Now, the experts in this room know that IRS does not send emails, right? They send letters. And so a lot of the users, we had to educate them how to recognize these phishing emails. And the biggest giveaway is if you hover over a link, let's say it's on an email, you hover over the link, it'll show exactly where it came from or where that link is going to direct you to. So if it's really from IRS, if you before you click on any link, it should say irs.gov. But if it says irs.co.uk, delete it. Yeah. And you should not be clicking on any links anyways, right? Especially if you're not expecting an email from IRS or, Ted down the street, anything of that sort. So the biggest giveaway that I'll have here is that be very vigilant, be very mindful about these messages coming to you in whatever format they come. And that's going to be your biggest benefit, is understanding, is this real or is it not?
Well, I think that's one of the most important pieces. We all chuckled when you talked about the experts and the IRS emailing. The challenge that I see for most of the folks that we talk to, clients, people that are just associates, there's that shroud of embarrassment. I can't believe I was duped by this. And I think back, 20 years ago, it used to be there was a prince that couldn't get out of a country. And if we just sent them $5,000, they'd send you $5 million. And people fall for it. So you just talked about hovering over rather than clicking. What else can we do to protect? So that way, it takes that embarrassment away and we avoid the problem altogether.
Right. So, I think the biggest one from an individual standpoint is really getting educated about how to recognize these things. There's several points that I would mention. The first one is really understanding what is a phishing email, what is a vishing or smishing or any of these forms of phishing attacks. There are resources online that individuals can go to that help you understand how to recognize these things. The biggest thing I would say is get educated in whether it's recognizing, any of these scams or any of these, breach type emails, really understanding what drives a hacker to do this. Once you understand what drives these organizations or individuals to breach you, you have a better understanding of what's coming at you. So the biggest thing is get educated. Just like in the financial world, if somebody wanted to go out and understand, what does my retirement look like? Well, not me personally, because I'll be working for the rest of my life. But if I was to come to, Kevin or you, Todd, I want to get educated. And I want to seek the experts to do that. Now, there are free online resources to do that, to understand how to recognize these things. And really, what is a breach? What is a hack? And how can I protect myself?
The way I've heard it in the past, technology brings these great conveniences, access, right? We used to have to go to the bank to do transactions. Now you can do it in the palm of your hand. But with every opportunity also opens up an opportunity or vulnerability. So what about apps? What do I do from that standpoint if I'm trying to take advantage of these conveniences, but I don't want to open up to all this vulnerability? What can I do from that standpoint?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is, first thing is, any device that you use, I'll kind of go through the basic rundown, and then which will probably lead right into the answer of your question. The biggest thing I would do on whether it's a mobile device, whether it's a laptop, desktop, is make sure that your system is always up to date. So what I mean by that is, make sure that when you see that notification from Windows or Microsoft or from Apple saying you need to update your system. Make sure you always stay up to date on those things. The second thing I would say is update your applications. So if you're using things like Google Chrome or Firefox or Microsoft Edge, individuals at home can do this very easily. Just click on the button that says update and you update. Make sure that these applications are updated. Acrobat Reader, whatever it might be. The third thing I would say is make sure that the device that you have that you're using frequently is protected from antivirus with the latest updates on, system updates and that sort of thing. A lot of these antivirus products also do dark web monitoring, which is very, very helpful in these things. I would also recommend that most people use multi-factor authentication. So if you're, using online banking, if you've got email, turn on that multi-factor authentication. The reason being is it reduces the risk of somebody breaching your account.
Divyash, what is two-factor authentication?
Sure, that's a great question. So when you enter your username password, there's going to be another notification that comes to you to a device like your phone. And it'll say, are you really logging into US Bank? Are you really logging into Charles Schwab? Yes. Okay. Click yes. And then sometimes you might get presented with a number. And then you enter the number, and then that's how you basically. So multi-factor authentication is basically a second type of verification that it really is Kevin logging into the site.
Yeah, thank you.
The other things I would recommend is a password manager, and then using complicated passwords. Don't use something simple. A lot of times over, the better part of what I do, I see very simple passwords being entered in these systems. Now, even online systems are saying your password's way too weak. Use things like passphrases.
Mm-hmm.
My cat walked down the road and got hit by a car. I don't know, with an exclamation.
That's a long password.
But it's recommended. So the more characters you use, the longer it takes for these random these automation tools to breach that account.
And I was also told passphrases work because you can remember the phrase. The biggest challenge we all run into is remembering the passwords, right? And then you have to change it. So if it's a passphrase, generally folks are able to remember the phrase easier than they are what the characters would be and whatnot.
Right. Add a couple of characters like, symbols and those types of things in there. Makes it easier. If you can't remember it, I'd recommend using a password manager. Password managers are great. They're fairly inexpensive. So those are some of the tools that I would suggest. And then you can use, antivirus products like Trend Micro for personal devices where even your phone is protected. So if you're getting a phishing scam in, these things will flag you and say, don't do that. And it'll protect you from clicking on some bad links.
A password protector is just an application that you put passwords into. Is that correct?
Password manager, that's correct.
But a password manager will also create complex passwords for you. So you don't need to remember them, and every website can be different.
That's right.
Or every login can be different.
That's correct. And the best part of it is these password managers are protected in a very high security, environment. There's people monitoring those systems. The other part to it is there's also things like, tools that do dark web monitoring. So if your password's ever breached and appears on the dark web, it'll tell you, change that password immediately for chase.com, for example.
You've mentioned dark web a couple times. What is the dark web? I mean, is it a separate internet? How do I?
It's where people go to exchange information where credentials have been leaked, breached. For example, early 2024, national public data was breached where 2.9 billion records were exposed. And that was across US, UK, Canada, and lots of different types of information was exposed. And these things are usually sold on the dark web where, it's kind of a buy and sell marketplace for hackers. And usually if credentials are leaked, they're basically exposed. And so what some of these organizations do is monitor the dark web to see, did Todd's Chase account get breached? And here's the password for it. And once it gets flagged, those systems will alert you and say, change that password.
It's a very high probability that everybody knows, or my personal information is out in the dark web. My birth date, my social security number, all of that information, correct?
I'd probably say yes.
Yeah. My son's in cybersecurity for the Air Force, and he said even the military was hacked, and China now has all of the information on the service people.
So that's a whole different topic that I could get into that can go on for hours. One of the things that China is able to do, not just from a personal standpoint, but from a business standpoint, and this is why Department of Defense is putting together these mandates, is they've been able to replicate our war fighter equipment down to the rivets. So if you look at our helicopters, our fighter jets, they've been able to duplicate. How do they get all that information? How do they get the blueprints? It's through these organizations that left cybersecurity wide open. So a lot of it, even with systems that are in place, that are protected, even those systems are getting breached. And the number one reason why, we go back to phishing. Phishing is the lowest common, it's the most easiest way to get inside a company. If I wanted to breach, I would send users an email saying, click on this link that looks like exactly like a Microsoft online page that shows email, password, Microsoft logo, everything 100% duplicated to where it looks like Microsoft, but the URL says Microsoft dot co.uk dot something else. And that's where you have to recognize this is not a legit Microsoft site. It might even say microsoft.kevinswanson.co.uk, but that's not Microsoft. And once they do that, you enter your credentials in. Now we've got access to things.
So that's from a corporate standpoint. Used to spend a lot of time at Starbucks and other coffee places, and it seems like the biggest draw is free Wi-Fi. How do you protect yourself there?
Yeah, so best thing to do. So last week I was actually out on travel, and I thought to myself, hey, this is a great idea to talk about on this podcast. I was at a hotel, I was at an airport, I was in public places using my hotspot off my phone. I rarely get onto the public Wi-Fi, but if you did, the tools that I mentioned, like antivirus security or any of these things, they have a free VPN. Use the VPN if you're going to use public hotspots, public Wi-Fi.
VPN stands for what?
Virtual private network. So essentially your own freeway to the internet, and it basically protects you. So in other words, if I'm going to use San Jose Airport's Wi-Fi and I connect, the next thing I want to do is use my VPN to browse the internet, to check the emails, to go online banking, because the VPN basically has security protection in place, whereas we don't know what these public Wi-Fis have. And the other thing is that you, along with many other people, are going to be on that public Wi-Fi. So there could be a hacker sitting right next to you and you wouldn't know. These VPNs kind of encapsulate and secure your connection to the internet.
Got it. As we get older, a lot of the solutions that you've given to us have been technology-based or using technology, and we become less comfortable with technology. I look at my mother. She had a hard time getting into her phone, remembering a password if it wasn't simple when you tried to make it more complex, or the ability for her to figure out how to use a VPN, not going to happen. What can be done for these folks?
Yeah, I know I have a aging mom myself at home, so a lot of times, and the thing with my mom is a lot of things come through in a non-native language. So the challenges become even greater. And my biggest thing is, they're going to be the number one targets in banking. My mom's gotten tons of text messages from random bank places. I said, Mom, first way to check is, do you even bank with them? No, you don't. Delete it. Don't click on any links. My number one thing is, no matter what text message you get, delete it. Don't click on any links. Passwords, again, in my case, my mom writes down all the passwords, which is also kind of dangerous, right? So technology is hard for them to use. The best thing is try not to use a small device to where eyesight's become a problem. Using a small screen becomes a problematic thing. I've got an iPad for my mother, big fonts, and if she needed to do online banking, she typically calls the bank in. She doesn't do anything. Unfortunately, there's no one way or one right answer what works. Some people are very savvy and really get technology quickly. In my case at home, it's quite the opposite. So it's almost a lot of hand-holding, and I don't have a perfect answer for that.
Yeah. So as my mom was experiencing dementia and having difficulty with her technology, one of the solutions that we brought in, we give them a quick plug, is GrandPad. And they actually limit the phone calls that they receive from people who are in the address book. And they limit the websites you can go to sites that are already approved in the system. And they even limit the radio stations or games you can play online to things that you pick. So the apps that you put on there are specifically for that use. And they had a customer service person. You could click on the face of the customer service person, and it would call in, and they could help walk them through any of the struggles they had there. I felt that was one of the safest ways for my mom to be able to still be out there, to still use the phone, to still text, to still go out on the website to the sites she wanted, to the religious shows that she wanted, and not have to worry so much about her being taken advantage of.
So I would probably piggyback off, and then that's a great suggestion. And I've learned something new from you today on cybersecurity, but I would say that could be applied to anybody, and limit your boundary, especially when it comes to the digital world. One of the things we try to do in any organization is really, where do you need to go, right? So if we're in an organization, in a company like Potentia, if we turn around and look at what we've configured on, let's say, the firewalls upstairs, it really is limited to where you can go. Now, you might think you can go everywhere, but we've limited to what the destinations outgoing and incoming are. It's similar to what you just said. Limit who you're calling, who's calling you. It's good practice all around.
You're saying I should reduce the 200 apps I have on my cell phone?
As long as you keep it 200 and under.
I'd like to pivot because talking about older folks and parents and whatnot, and my mom, for full disclosure, doesn't use a cell phone and avoids all of this. So I love her to death and told her I wouldn't bring that up, but that's her safety defense. I'm on the flip side of that. I have a 14-year-old at home that all he wants to do is game, and I'm petrified of the vulnerabilities that these different free apps, free games have. What does a parent do in that situation?
Yeah, I have a 14-year-old and as well, and parental controls. Everything that needs to be installed on these devices, turn on that parental controller, and then it comes to you for approval. The reason being is, there's so many different things out there like Instagram and all these different things. How do you control it? So I'm going through that today. And what I found is I want to make sure that there's controls in place to what my daughter can turn around and install, and even my son, right? So we want to make sure that those things are approved by me.
That's excellent. Now, in the past, I'd heard almost give them their own machine so that way none of your business or banking is on the same computer that they're using for different games and whatnot. Is that something you would do, or?
Oh, that's that's exactly it. So they have their own devices,
okay,
but it still comes to me for approval. So if they're using an Apple device or a Google device, it still requires parental controls, including emails and that sort of thing, right? So if they want to install any apps, or they're all these online systems, all these applications that they can install, they almost all have a parental control, or some sort of control over it. So even though that they have their own device, they can do that.
At some point, with all of the fraudsters that are out there, with all of the different phishing and vishing and smishings and all of that out there, we're going to get caught at some point. We're going to click on something we shouldn't. We're going to give out information on the phone that we shouldn't. Once we realize we've made a mistake, beyond getting past the feeling of stupidity, of helplessness because I was taken advantage of, what do I do next?
From the individual standpoint, I think the best thing to do is, definitely notify the credit bureaus, call in and report it if you can. Definitely do those things. In the case of the National Public Data breach last year, where all these things were exposed, the first things that people were talking about was, how do I freeze my credit reports and that sort of thing. So a lot of times, what these hackers are going after is, how much more can I steal, right? And so if we turn around and close those things off, that's the first line. In an organization, obviously you want to escalate that to the higher ups at the company to make sure that the breach is not as bad, or really want to understand how widely affected the breach is. To give you guys an example, a few years ago, a breach happened on a Friday afternoon, and these guys had been really staking out, almost like they're staking out a house that they're going to rob. And so they come into your systems, and what had happened was the vendor for this company actually got breached, and they saw a $1.75 million invoice going to the company we manage, and we flagged it early on. The problem had been is that they used different domains, and the end user clicked on a link and wired out $1.75 million on a Friday afternoon. Monday morning, those bank accounts at Chase were cleared out. Now, that's the exact reason why you don't click on links. But if you do see something like this sort of activity, definitely report it. From a personal standpoint, you want to make sure that you report it to the credit bureaus, call the authorities, make sure you get all these things noted.
Yeah. Change passwords as quickly as possible. And when you say credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, anybody else that they should be reaching out and contacting?
TransUnion, Equifax, and I forget the third one.
Yeah, me too. Go to TransUnion and Equifax first. Google what the third one is, and make sure I've done it myself. It's easy to get on to once you're in, and there's a box that says freeze my credit, and you just click it and it's done.
Yeah, there's also credit monitoring systems, and things like Aura or Identity Guard, for a very minimal price, they do all these things for you. And it's a great way to protect yourself in case, even if you're not breached, but let's say somebody else is, at least you'll be notified.
Absolutely. And to add to that, we're talking about ourselves again, but research has shown that there's been times where fraudsters went after children, because to your point, it's how much can I steal? So if you could get a child's credit report, and you'd have literally until they got to applying for financial aid or the first loan before they found out that their credit had been ruined. So locking down minors' credit isn't a bad idea either. So it's another area.
That's a great point.
It goes back to those vulnerabilities. Every vulnerability, how much do you want to take away and restrict to feel that level of safety?
Right. No, that's a great idea, especially why would a child need to have a credit report wide open, right? So locking those things down help.
Absolutely. Anything else to add, Kevin? I know these questions could go on for hours, so especially on a topic like this. So Divyash, thank you.
Thank you.
One question I always like to ask our guests: what piece of financial advice have you received in your life that really meant something and had a positive impact?
Oh, I'm the wrong person to ask this. No, I would say first thing is call the experts here at Potentia, right? Especially what I would do is advise to the younger listeners of this podcast and say start early and seek out financial advice early on in their lives and careers. The reason being is once you get going, and the salaries and rate, pay rates and that sort of thing today is much higher, and so you have a tendency to spend more and do all these things more. But if you start saving money early on in life, I think those are some of the things that I was taught by my parents and didn't listen to. Is to start off early. The other things I would say is try to be debt free. I have a great mentor who's kind of helped me from very early on in life and be debt free. Try not to accumulate too big of a debt, especially when credit cards are easy to get. And then, of course, try to build assets. And so those things that kind of can help you in the retirement days. So everybody's journey is different and their goals are different, financial goals. Those are the three things that I've heard over and over and over again. So
it's excellent. Well, thank you, Divyash.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Kevin, thank you. Everybody, what we've learned today, being secure isn't one time, it's a mindset. It's more than technology. We have to diversify our defenses like we diversify our assets. Use pass phrases instead of pass words. Update our operating systems for those security patches as quickly as possible. Really be as vigilant to be as safe as we possibly can be. You've worked too hard to amass this wealth. We want to make sure that it goes to you and your generation and your legacy, not to some fraudster that happened to strike it on the right email or text message. So with that, thank you for joining the Power of Wealthness podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share so you never miss an episode. Thank you all.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Wealthness podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at potentiawealth.com or give us a call at 408-288-7886. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Potentia Wealth or Potentia RIA. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Investment advice offered through Potentia RIA LLC, a registered investment advisor.